Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, fireworks yesterday at the White House. As you know, President Trump was hosting El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, who is now becoming clearly one of the closest allies of the United States and of President Trump. And the media was loaded for a fight. About 30 of them came right into the Oval Office. They were looking now to go after Trump, to go after Bukele. Why? Because of the issue. I've never seen something like this in my life. The left-wing media, the Democrat media in this country is obsessed with the case of an illegal, I want to stress this, an illegal alien from El Salvador who is an MS-13 gang member, a foreign terrorist. Remember, Trump designated MS-13 as a foreign terrorist organization along with Tren de Aragua. And they are literally obsessed over this case regarding Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And it's nonstop. It's front page, newspaper after newspaper. CNN's going crazy. MSNBC, the network news. They won't let this story go. You would think, I don't know, he's an American citizen. No, he's an illegal. But they keep referring to him. He's a Maryland man and a father. And he was accidentally or mistakenly deported to El Salvador, to their, infamous Supermax prison. Well, yeah, it may have been an administrative error, but the man is an MS-13 terrorist. In fact, as was laid out yesterday in an incredible presser that Trump held, taking on CNN, taking on the hostile fake news, not one, but two district courts, two judges, two courts ruled that this guy Garcia was an MS-13 gangbanger who was engaged in human trafficking. The man sold human beings, slaves, as well as being a sex trafficker. Good. Okay. So, what, he didn't commit a crime the week before. It doesn't matter. He's gone. He's deported. He's in El Salvador, which is his country of origin. What's the problem? Well, a district court judge in Maryland said Trump didn't have the right to deport him. Why? Because the guy's wife is an American citizen. His children, anchor babies, are American citizens. And so he has to stay. And his due process rights were violated. Pity the MS-13 gangbanger. And so 30 journalists were allowed into the White House. It was really 4 on 30. President Trump, Pam Bondi, Marco Rubio, and Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. And I'm telling you, they destroyed him. They destroyed him. And it began with, "This is CNN." Caitlin Collins, who's like their rabid anti-Trumper. I mean, all she does is just attack Trump no matter what. And so right away, she led the press conference asking about this, deported MS-13 illegal. Listen now to Trump with El Salvador's president Bukele right beside him. He goes, okay, let's get this thing going. Caitlin, you get the first question. Roll cut 1, Mike.
Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN. Low-rated. Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So basically the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that the district court judge in Maryland, which is just common sense, has no right to dictate or conduct American foreign policy. You can't be telling the president, ordering him to go to El Salvador, compel and force the El Salvadorian government to return. He's their citizen. He's not an American citizen. He's here illegally for the 500th time. He's an illegal in our country. So what's the scandal? What's the problem? Okay, it was an administrative error. That's all it was. He wasn't supposed to be part of the initial 200 sent on a plane load, but they were going to deport him anyway. So what's the problem? We got him out quicker. Big deal. But no, the media, see, they're trying to create this myth that Trump is disappearing people, that he's just willy-nilly sending people to gulags, to prisons. He's a fascist. So they're trying now to make this martyr out of an MS-13 terrorist and human trafficker. It's really sick. So, but the media won't let it go. There was a feeding frenzy. So Pam Bondi's trying to explain to them, look, we've had two courts rule on this. The guy's MS-13. Furthermore, the Supreme Court ruled 9-0. Yes, if we can bring him back, he can, face an official deportation hearing. If we can, we'll get him back. But he's a citizen of El Salvador. We're talking about paperwork. It's up to El Salvador if they want to send him back. He's their citizen. He's back in his country of origin, in El Salvador. So the Supreme Court said, look, if you can bring him back, provide a plane, whatever, he can go through an official deportation hearing, and then they'll kick him out again. But you can't force him. And that was Pam Bondi's point. But we're not going to hold a gun to Bukele's head and say, you know what, we're going to start a war with you to bring back this MS-13 gangbanger. A judge cannot compel the president to act in foreign affairs. That's illegal and blatantly unconstitutional. So listen now to Trump. You would think this would have ended the question. No. Collins comes right back at him. Will you return him? You need to return him. So Trump then says, let me send it over now to my deputy chief of staff, Stephen Miller. So the AG wasn't good enough for you? Let me give you the deputy chief of staff. Roll cut to a mic.
So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job. Thank you, Pam. Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Could you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant. Because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also?
By the way, he's completely right. It's just, look at him. Like rabid dogs. Look at him. Trying to make something out of nothing. Always trying to somehow undermine me, sabotage me, demonize me, vilify me, twist, manipulate. So Miller said, okay, you want the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Here it is. Roll cut 2A. Mike.
He's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation.
So, in other words, now, by the way, it's leading every broadcast right now. Right now, as I speak to you now, this is everywhere. This is, and they keep mentioning to him, they keep referring to him as a Maryland migrant or, deported Maryland man remains in mega prison. And so they're trying to create this myth, the media is, all across, the entire media, that somehow he deported an innocent man, an American. How dare father, a loving, decent father. So, as Miller just said, they've already ordered him deported. I've never, ever seen anything like this. I thought Sandy, frankly, hit the nail on the head, really hit it on the head in our pre-show production meeting, where she said, and she's going, it's MSNBC, it's CNN, it's ABC News, CBS News, NBC News. She's just going on CNBC, even the financial networks. I'm not kidding. It's the Washington Post, the New York Times, Associated Press, Boston Globe. I could go on and on and on. He's become like this cause célèbre. And and the Democrats are going to the wall for this guy. And as Sandy said, don't you realize who you're defending? You're defending an MS-13 brutal gang member who 2 courts, not one, but 2 immigration courts said, yeah, this guy's MS-13 all the way. He's trafficking children. He's trafficking women. God knows how many murders he's committed. He's in the country illegally. He's a terrorist. And you guys are fighting for him? Like this is your big stand against the Trump regime? It's like no matter what Trump does, really, it doesn't matter what he does, they have to oppose him. They so hate him. They're so rabid in their hatred and opposition that honestly, they would defend Adolf Hitler. If Trump set him against Hitler, they'll defend Hitler. If Trump set him against Mao, they'll defend Mao. If Trump set him against Stalin, they'll defend Stalin. They'll defend, any mass murderer now, just to oppose Trump. So, listen now to Miller. It was an incredible presser yesterday. It was unbelievable. It was essentially 4 against a pack. About almost 3 dozen, chomping at the bit, rabid journalists who would not let this issue of this guy, Garcia, Gilmar Abrego Garcia, go. This illegal MS-13 El Salvadorian from Maryland. So Stephen Miller lays it out, I thought very well, saying, look, 2 immigration judges, 2 different courts have ruled this guy's MS-13. Plus, he's been designated as part of a terrorist organization. MS-13 is now a foreign terrorist organization. So according to American immigration law, there's no issue here. He cannot remain in the United States. Like every other illegal foreign terrorist, they must be deported to their country of origin. Period. Full stop. What's the issue? Well, Miller continues. Listen now to this, saying it only because of one rogue activist, radical left-wing judge who tried to tell the president that he can't deport criminal gangbangers and terrorists. And even then, that judge lost at the Supreme Court 9-0. And yet you in the media here, you led by this is CNN, you're still defending this guy? Roll cut to B, Mike.
This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. that issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
Now, President Trump at this point, now he's starting to toy with the media. I mean, it was brilliant. Honestly, it was an absolute masterpiece on how to deal with the fake news. And so he now is like with Bukele right beside him, the president of El Salvador, and you can feel the warmth between the two men and the closeness between the two men. He then is, looking at Bukele, and then he goes back to Miller and he says, "Really, Stephen? Really, the Supreme Court?" Really? The Supreme Court ruled 9-0 in our favor? 9, even all the liberals on the court ruled in our favor? Really, Stephen? Roll cut 3, Mike.
What was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0.
In our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time. No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here, because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it for the court can only be directed to him.
So, this is checkmate. This is intellectual, political, legal checkmate. Brilliant. I got to say, Miller is, a brain. He's, by the way, his nickname is the Vulcan, from Star Trek, Spock. He's just got such intellectual firepower. But he's completely right. He goes, look, this guy's an illegal. He's a terrorist. He's now in El Salvador. So what are we going to do? Compel El Salvador to bring him back so we can deport him a second time? He said, no way can this possibly end any other way but him being deported. He is a citizen of El Salvador. He is an illegal alien in America. So if somebody wants to bring him back so we can deport him a second time, okay, a couple lines are open if you still want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I just want to play one more cut, and I'm going to go right to the phone lines. So, you've now heard, by the way, we haven't even played Rubio yet. Rubio destroyed the media as well. So you had Pam Bondi. You had Stephen Miller. You've had the president. Now, everyone's laying it out over and over and over and over again. This guy's an illegal. This guy's MS-13. MS-13 is a foreign terrorist organization. We have to deport him no matter what. He was going to be deported. It was an administrative error to put him in the first plane load. They hadn't finished all the paperwork, but, he was going to be deported eventually within a matter of weeks. So he has to go back to El Salvador. What's the issue? So we did it 2 weeks earlier or 3 weeks earlier or 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. Who cares? All of you are getting your panties in a wad, acting like this is the biggest civil liberties or civil rights case since Martin Luther King Jr. It's much ado about nothing. Plus, you're crying and pleading on behalf of a vicious gang member who 2 courts have said are part of MS-13 and has committed God knows how many heinous crimes. We know human trafficking for sure, but MS-13, they're in the murder and the rape business. And this is who you're weeping for. So they then say, look, he's in El Salvador. He's an illegal. He's not an American citizen or a legal resident. He's a citizen of El Salvador. Now, if the Supreme Court wants us to bring him back so we can deport him a second time, fine, we'll bring him back and then we'll deport him. But it's up to the president of El Salvador. It's his citizen. It's not ours. So you would think after being destroyed like this that Caitlin Collins would just say, okay, look, I'm really being humiliated now. I mean, I'm looking absolutely pathetic. No. Her bosses are telling her, you've got to defend this guy, defend this illegal, defend this MS-13 terrorist. You got to defend him to the hilt. Okay. So she then asks Bukele a third time, will you return him? You need to return him. Listen to Bukele's response. He and Trump were having fun. Roll cut 4, Mike.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to be not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
Now, he makes he's having a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but he makes a brilliant argument. You see, what the left and the media and the Democrats are now asking, listen to this. They're either asking that we send in a special operations team to go into El Salvador, break into their mega prison, I'm serious, kidnap this guy, okay, Garcia, and bring him back to the United States so that we eventually deport him back to El Salvador. Or, as Bukele said, look, this guy's a terrorist. I know, I deal with MS-13. I crushed MS-13. I crushed him. We went from being the murder capital of the world to the safest country, including America, including Canada, the safest country in the entire Western Hemisphere. How do you think I did it? I kept throwing these guys in jail. And I put them in there for 30, 40 years. And that's how I cleaned up the streets. So you want me to smuggle a terrorist back into the United States? Like, what do you guys think? I'm crazy? Do I sound like a lunatic to you? In fact, listen to Bukele saying, look, this is how I broke the back of MS-13. I don't release them. I arrest them and I imprison them. Roll cut 4A, Mike.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into our country.
There's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people.
Now, that's a very cutting line from Trump. He really cut him with that. And it's very true. Where he looks at Bukele and said, look, this may come as a show. You're from El Salvador. You don't deal with the crazy left that I have here. Okay? But, as he put it, they'd love to have a criminal released into our country. That's all Biden did for 4 years, was allow criminals and MS-13 and gangbangers to pour into our country. And the media loved it. The Democrats loved it. They never criticized them once. They cheered it on again and again and again. He goes, they're sick people. They're fascinated with crime and criminals. They would love it. They'd love it. The more MS-13, the better. He's right. They're sick people. I want to read this. This is you can text us, by the way. 70470. And this is from 603. Absolutely brilliant, from New Hampshire. Jeff, let me get this straight. This line of questioning about the non-existent due process rights of this El Salvadorian man is coming from the same fake news media reporters that didn't put 1 ounce of pressure on the Biden administration when it came to the due process rights of all the incarcerated J6ers who actually were American citizens. I just want to make sure I'm hearing this right. Yes. They weep for this guy, an illegal alien, a terrorist, an MS-13 gangbanger. That's the one they care about, but not American citizens falsely imprisoned, no due process rights, some of them rotting in gulags for 18 months to 2 years, never once being charged. That was okay. That was fine. If you're a Trump supporter, throw them in a gulag. But if MS-13, send them back. We want them. We need them. All right. This is from Mark on Messenger. Jeff, I'm sorry. If an illegal alien happens to get scooped up in an ICE raid, whether they are a criminal or not, I consider it a bonus. It's one less illegal alien in the United States. Call me cruel or whatever you want, but the law is the law, Jeff, and they get deported. What part of that do these people not understand? Jeff, nobody is above the law. Right, Jeff? Laugh out loud, hypocrites. Mark, you nailed it. I mean, you absolutely nailed it. So I thought nobody was above the law. Now what? MS-13 is above the law? For Michelle Wu, yesterday, as we talked about, pedophiles are above the law if they're illegal aliens. Child molesters. Now, for the national media and the Democrats, it's MS-13 gangbangers and human traffickers. They're now above the law. They can't be deported. Let me ask all of you this. It's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. And this really gets to the heart of the issue. The media and the Democrats would have you believe that if you can deport this illegal El Salvadorian MS-13 gangbanger, then you can deport anybody. Anybody. That's their argument. Anybody, including American citizens, including you, including me, including anybody. That people will just start, and they're arguing this, I'm serious, that Trump is just going to start disappearing people from the streets. That ICE is just going to show up and snatch people for no reason whatsoever, or for anybody who opposes the Trump Nazi dictatorship. Are you concerned? Are you worried that you will be deported? Because that's their argument. That if they can deport this guy, then they can deport anyone. Are you concerned that they could do this to you? That you will be deported to some mega prison in El Salvador? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in National ER. If you prefer, again, I was very active on X last night. You can vote via X. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, KUHN as in National ER, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are jammed. I want to go right to the phone lines. Let me ask all of you. Media now in an absolute frenzy. They are going to the wall to defend this illegal MS-13 gangbanger from Maryland. That's where he's been living, at least for the last couple of years. He has now been deported to El Salvador. Trump administration said it was an administrative error. He wasn't supposed to be on that initial plane load of about 200 to 250 Tren de Aragua MS-13 gangbangers that were sent to that Supermax prison. However, they go, look, we were going to deport him anyway. I mean, deport him now, deport him later. This guy was going to go. He's MS-13. He's a criminal. He's a thug. He's an illegal. He's a terrorist. He's got to go. The left is arguing that they violated his due process rights and that if they can deport him, as they're saying now, disappear him, send him to a gulag or send him to this prison, they could do it to any American. That now no American is safe, that Trump now is showing us his authoritarian tendencies and that this is only going to get worse. That if we don't defend Abrego Garcia, if we don't defend him, all of our rights, all of our liberties are in jeopardy, and that Trump can deport any single one of us. Agree, disagree. Honestly, I think they're insane. I've never heard of a more crazy argument in my life. This is conspiracy theory, fever swamp on steroids. But that's me. I want to hear from you, Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent in Western Pennsylvania, right near Pittsburgh. You're going to kick us off, Dave. Thanks for holding and welcome.
I saw a superstar on Wendy Bell on Saturday. She went right to you first, buddy. That's my Pittsburgh girl. What do you expect, Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I really enjoy doing her show. She's great. You know what? I think I want to have her on the show. I want the audience to get to know her a little bit. She's a great journalist, really gutsy, really courageous, and she's got a great show on Newsmax. But let that go, Dave. Dave, what do you make of the showdown that Trump had with the media yesterday at the White House with the El Salvadorian president right beside him?
Media are too stupid to not know. Of course, they understand constitutionally their amendment right, the freedom of the press, but they have a trouble with something called the truth, Jeff, and they don't understand the Constitution since I'm your constitutional correspondent. Let's go to the First Amendment, Jeff. Okay, they have the freedom of the press, but with that, we have common sense that they report the truth. Second of all, Jeff, they know that this guy's not an American citizen. They'll defend him before they defend me and you or those poor people on January 6th, Jeff, who are real Americans. Whether they broke the law or not, they have a right to due process because they were born here. Okay, they're CNN and all the communist news networks out there and ACLU and all the other acronyms, Jeff. Okay, first of all, they don't belong here. They weren't born. I don't care if it's got the Brady Bunch for anchor kids, Jeff. He doesn't belong here. And Trump put them right in their place.
Dave, as always, buddy, you hit the nail right on the head. Let me ask you a super quick follow-up. You're dead on about the legality of this, the politics of this. Sandy and I were talking about this before the show, and you tell me if you agree or disagree. You know, the Democrats now are going to, as Steve Miller said in another interview, he said this is a 90, forget 80-20. This is a 90-10 issue now for the Trump administration. Who the hell defends MS-13? Who defends terrorists and gangbangers? Yet that's what the media and the Democrats have been reduced to in their, Trump derangement syndrome. Dave, are the Democrats now making a fatal political mistake? Because the deportations are very popular. Him cracking down on MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, very popular. Sending them to El Salvador, very popular. Are the Democrats now, again, showing us just how extreme, radical, and outside the mainstream they really are?
Yes, they are. And, Jeff, can I make just one more point real quick?
Yes.
I want to see Pam Bondi. Listen, she's beautiful. She's pretty. She's nice to look at. Get your rear end off Fox News. Get Kash Patel and Dan the Man Bongino going and start arresting Michelle Wu and your governor and my governor, too, Josh Shapiro. I feel bad about what happened to him, Jeff, from that knucklehead. But, Jeff, he's an extreme left-winger, too. He should be anything more like my Senator Fetterman, more of the middle of the road. Because what happened with Shapiro, he knows he's a Democrat, and the Democrats don't like him. Because I'm not playing the race card, Jeff, because we know that the racist against Jewish people.
No, you're right. Look, that's what cost him the vice presidential nomination for Kamala on the ticket. He was Jewish. I mean, the Democrats said it openly. Many in the far left, they said it. He's, originally Israeli. He's an American citizen, but he's originally Israeli, served in the IDF. And they said, no, he's Jewish. He's pro-Israel. We don't want him. And that may have cost him I still think Trump would have won Pennsylvania. But at least with Shapiro, it's in play. No, they went with Tampon Tim, who it's all coming out, by the way, Dave, that he is up to his eyeballs in Chinese communist money. He's an agent of communist China. There's no question about it now. So the Chinese the Chi-Coms own him. So that's who Kamala went with. To me, that tells you everything you need to know. The Democratic Party, and look at him now in this tariff war, this trade war between us and China. The Democrats are openly rooting for the Chi-Coms. Elizabeth Warren came out just a couple days ago and said she wants to take the tariff authority away from Donald Trump. She wants us to lose this trade war with China. They're always on the side of communist China. So to me, if that's not treason, I don't know what is. Dave, as always, dynamite stuff, my friend. Ed in Worcester. Thanks for holding, Ed, and welcome. Ed? Do we have Ed or did we lose Ed? All right, let's see if we can reconnect with Ed. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, buddy.
Mark.
Hey, Jeff, Jeff, as I always say, when Massachusetts gets too bat crap crazy, give me a call, buddy. We'll find you somewhere to live up here where it's sane. Okay? People up here aren't nuts like they are down there, my man, all right?
No, they really are crazy down here, Mark. Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think maybe even crazier than California. Really, Mark, I'm telling you. Holy mackerel. I mean, let's put it this way. We can give the California Moonbats now a real run for their money. But, Mark, what do you make of this now? I've never seen this in my life. The media, the Democrats. I don't know if you heard about this. Senator Chris Van Hollen, and I'm going to play a cut because he's going crazy on TV, on the cable news networks. But he now says he's going to fly to El Salvador. He wants to meet with Bukele, the El Salvadorian president, and essentially try to twist his arm and persuade him to release this illegal MS-13 gangbanger and send him back to the United States. Mark, why are the Dems and the media so obsessed with bringing this guy back to be deported again?
What drives me the most insane about this is while they're screaming and yelling about an El Salvadoran criminal alien, at the same time, Jeff, in a Maryland court, the same state, same guy, an El Salvadoran criminal alien was found guilty of first-degree rape and murder of a 37-year-old mom. Okay, the guy snuck across the border at least 3 times in 2023 under Biden's open borders. The last time he made it to sneak through and not get caught. He's been all over the country, Jeff. He went to Maryland, and he raped and murdered a 37-year-old woman, an El Salvadoran criminal alien from the same state at the same time. They're talking about this clown, okay? I want to take that albatross and hang it around their necks, Jeff, and I want to make them own this. When they talk about this guy, I'm going to say, okay, well, here's Victor Martinez Hernandez, an El Salvadoran criminal alien guilty of first-degree rape and murder. I want you to own him, too. As soon as you support that guy, I want you supporting this guy. And I want to hang that albatross around their neck, Jeff, and I want to make them suffer for all the crap that they put on the American people.
Oh, Mark, really good stuff. That's Rachel Morin, and you're right, mother of 5. Mother of 5. And this animal, another MS-13 from El Salvador, snuck in, raped her, and murdered her. And notice the media, and the guy was finally convicted yesterday. And notice the media won't talk about that. No, they don't cry for Rachel Morin. They don't cry for all the Americans who've been, butchered and slaughtered by either MS-13 or Tren de Aragua or all these other criminal illegal aliens that Biden let in. No. But this guy, this human trafficker, this terrorist, this gangbanger, this guy they cry for. Mark, I've got to ask you this. On a deep psychological, spiritual level, what would make people like Caitlin Collins ask 5 times? She wouldn't take no for an answer. I'm serious. And to be fair to her, the Associated Press reporter was asking, the NBC News reporter was asking. I mean, she was just the one that led the pack, but it was a pack. They just won't stop until you tell them. It's like Bill and Sudbury. It doesn't matter what you tell them. It doesn't matter how you explain it to them. All the reasons, everything what's going on, the facts, the evidence, they're like rabid dogs. Rabid dogs. Send them back. Send them back. Send them back. Send them back. When are you going to return them? When are you going to return them? And, Trump is looking at him. Miller's looking at him. Rubio's looking at him. Bondi's looking at him. Like, how many ways and how many times can we explain to you who and what this guy is? Under our law, he must be deported. He should be deported. He's here illegally. He's a terrorist. He must go. El Salvador is his country of origin. Can you get that through your thick skull? And yet, Mark, they won't let it go. And so my question to you, what would make people, and they're not stupid. I mean, I agree with Sandy. We talked about this, before our show. She goes, some are, but many of them are not stupid. I mean, not all Democrat senators are stupid. Not all Democrat members of Congress are stupid. Not all people in the media are stupid. So what would make them go out of their way to put their careers, their reputations, their credibility on the line for a vicious gangbanger, a terrorist, a violent criminal illegal who traffics, that we know of, in children and women, sex slaves? Probably a murderer and a rapist, but we know on the sex trade and the human trafficking front, he's guilty of sin. Why would they go? I mean, I don't understand this. Is it a spiritual disease? Is it, as Trump says, there's almost like a mental sickness? There's something almost psychotic about these people? What's your theory, Mark?
I would bet you my lake house, Jeff, that 99% of them don't actually care about this guy. They're using this as an opportunity, Jeff. They've gotten their marching orders, and, they're going to start with the anti-immigrant, the whole authoritarian, he's a xenophobe, he hates immigrants. This is what they're going to, they're going to circle their wagons on this, Jeff, and they're going to hope that if they repeatedly say this over and over and over, just through pure hatred of Donald Trump, like I said, they don't actually care about this guy. As, Rahm Emanuel said, don't let a good crisis go to waste. And they're seizing on this as what they view as an opportunity to try to drive a wedge between Trump and even a fraction of people that voted for him. That they feel that if they can, then they can take the midterms and it starts impeachment. They're looking to drive that narrative through the next year, Jeff, so they can hope that they can either keep people from voting or turn enough people off from Trump so they can try to steal the midterm. Not steal. No one steals elections, Jeff, but try to steal enough votes so that they can turn it and then they can disrupt everything Trump has going on. But I don't think they actually care about this guy.
Interesting.
If they genuinely care about him, then they have got some serious moral compass issues, Jeff.
Mark, as always, thank you very much for that call. So Mark thinks a lot of this is very cynical. It's very political. It's opportunistic. They think that they can make this guy into a cause célèbre in order to hurt Trump with, I don't know, maybe women voters or Latino voters. I mean, I don't know what the calculation is, but he thinks it's very cold, very crass, that they really, maybe outside of a few, they really don't care about this guy. And Mark's larger point is, if they really do, then, as Trump put it, these are very sick people. These are people that enjoy seeing criminals released, MS-13 gangbangers released, and Americans being raped, murdered, and slaughtered. then you're talking about some serious, forget evil. I mean, obviously evil, but we're talking about, psychotics. Really, seriously, sociopathic, psychotic individuals, mentally ill individuals. Let me just play a very quick cut before I go to Ed in Worcester. Trump then says to Rubio, he says, look, you're the Secretary of State, so they want me to pressure Bukele, the president of El Salvador. Remember, this guy is an El Salvadorian citizen. This guy, Abrego Garcia, okay? This illegal. So I got to force him to basically send me back one of his citizens so I can deport him again. Listen to Marco Rubio, where he says, I don't understand what the issue or the so-called scandal is. What's the issue? It's cut and dried. Roll cut 5, Mike.
Marco, do you have something to say about it?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
Yeah. In 30 seconds. Yeah. By the way, I got to say this. Rubio's impressing me more and more. I had doubts about him, but I'm telling you, he's very articulate. He's loyal. So far, he's shown his loyalty to the president, and he's a great spokesman for the administration and their foreign policy. And he showed his stuff again yesterday. But he's right. He goes, what's the issue? He's an illegal from El Salvador. You send him back to his country of origin. What, a district court now is going to be running foreign policy for the United States? A district court's going to be conducting the foreign... So they're going to tell us who we can deport and who we can't deport? They're going to tell us now to start what? Going to other countries around the world and saying, nah, we deported this guy, but nah, sorry. Judge A in Maryland says we should bring him back because somebody's crying on his behalf. NPR is in a tizzy, or PBS is in a tizzy, or the Washington Post is saying, no, this guy has a wife and children, so who cares if he's a gangbanger and a murderer? His children miss him. Miller weighs in again. And he really now takes it to CNN. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Yeah, maybe even 95-5. Okay? I mean, you'll always have the Bills in Sudbury, the Franks in Gloucester, the Michelle Woos and the Maura Healeys and the Gavin Newsoms of the world, and the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders. But I think this could even be 95-5. So now, this is what's incredible. After she's thoroughly destroyed, eviscerated, dismantled, humiliated, look at the ding-dong at CNN. Look at that airhead, Caitlin Collins. She won't take no for an answer. So again, she goes to Bukele. Again, will you return this guy? Roll cut 6, Mike.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on numerous ones just a few days ago.
How long do we have to answer this question from you? Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility.
Bingo. Ed in Worcester. Thanks for holding, Ed, and welcome.
I have a couple of points I'd like to make.
Go ahead, Ed.
we're not planned out as well as the Democrats, unfortunately. They're basically just nefarious, and it's all about the money. And as I said a couple of weeks ago on Friday, right before closing, there's too much money at stake to lose to not to bring us down to our knees. Let's start from the very beginning. I think the very beginning started when they passed the law at midnight on January 1st, a number of years ago, to incarcerate people for, quote, terrorist activities. And those first people that I'm aware of were the J6ers. Trial without, jury, charges, trials. Very unconstitutional and very communistic things. I think Trump needs to, it's okay for the Democrats during Fauci and COVID to tell us ivermectin and what to do. And it was all, as you would say, BS, which it was. And, they had us, just running around in circles. I think we the people, need to boycott for 90 days all mainstream media, newspapers, television, and everything else. Let's hit them where they can. I know it's an old thing, but I'm starting to get to be an old man. We need to hit them where the pocketbook is. They're all about the money and all about the selling it out of this country.
Well, Ed, look, I agree with you completely. I would just slightly disagree on one small point. You say boycott them for 90 days. I say that's a good start. I'd say boycott them forever until they change. A permanent boycott. I'll give you an example. I don't watch CNN. I never watch CNN. I never watch MSNBC. The only thing I know what they say is because I do show prep and they'll clips. You read articles or whatever, and they'll say, oh, this host on MSNBC said XXXY, and there's an embedded, 2-minute clip or a 1-minute clip. So, but I need that for show prep. But outside of that, okay, in other words, on an article or on a news website or whatever, I never watch CNN, ever. I haven't watched CNN in years. I don't give them the ratings. I don't want to give them the eyeballs. I don't watch MSNBC. I don't watch any of the big networks, their newscasts. Never, ever, ever, ever. I don't want to give David Muir ratings after what he did to President Trump in that debate. Should be ashamed of himself. So I don't watch ABC News, CBS News, NBC News. Frankly, I don't subscribe to the New York Times. I used to. I don't anymore because they're really gotten bad. I don't subscribe to the Washington Post. I don't subscribe to the Boston Globe. I certainly don't subscribe to the Boston Herald, even though they're giving it away for $1 a year. That's how bad the paper is. Literally, $1 digital subscription, $1 for the whole year, and still nobody's buying it. That's the kind of dreck that they peddle on that newspaper. The Globe, to me, is they charge a little bit more, but they're as bad. So I've always said this about the two papers over the last 10 years. One is good for paint. The other one is good for wrapping fish. That's the only difference between the two of them. So I don't give my money to the fake news media establishment. I don't. Because why would I give money to my mortal enemy? What I've come to understand very clearly is that they hate us. The media hates us. They hate Trump supporters. They hate America. They hate MAGA. They hate conservatives. They hate the heartland. They hate the middle working class of this country. So literally, why put money in the pocket of people that revile us and want to destroy us? It's suicide. So, Ed, you're completely right. Don't get me wrong. I just wouldn't give him, I wouldn't cut him off at 90 days. Never give him your support. Never give him your ratings. So the question then is, because Trump is right, nobody watches CNN anymore. Their ratings are in the toilet. MSNBC, their ratings are in the toilet. So how do they stay on air? Who keeps paying these massive salaries? China, We're now finding out that Chinese money is flowing to the media and our own government through USAID. That's what Elon discovered. They're literally now state-run media. So they're taking our taxpayer money, saying it's going to go to some kind of a foreign aid cause, but really they're embezzling the money and sending it back, and that's how they're paying off New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, Reuters, MSNBC. To me, that there needs a massive investigation, and people need to go to jail. That's theft. The money is not ending up for poor kids in Africa, starving kids in Africa. Okay, my friends, this, you want to show, just to show you how in the tank the media is for the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. And this is the crisis now that we face in our country. We don't have an honest media. We have an incredibly corrupt media. And it's not just that they're rooting for China in this trade tariff war with the United States and with Trump. This should be front page all over the media here in Boston and around the country. I put it up on X last night. It got a good response, but frankly, this should be the biggest story or one of the biggest stories in the country. Hat tip to the Daily Caller. The Daily Caller did a full investigation of Michelle Wu. The mayor of Boston, who, by the way, is considered, along with AOC and Jasmine Crockett, as one of the 3 leading superstars. This is what the media says. One of the 3 leading superstars of the Democratic Party and a future presidential candidate. Okay, so this is not just some, mayor in some, two-mule town. We're talking not just about Boston, but one of the rising stars in the Democratic Party with a national profile. In 2021, in her campaign, listen now to this, she received hundreds of thousands of dollars from a fundraiser who goes by an Americanized name of Gary Yu, Y-U. His real name, he's from China, he's Chinese, is Yu Guoliang. You may ask, Jeff, who the hell is Yu Guoliang? Yu Guoliang, or i.e. Gary Yu, is a top Chinese Communist Party intelligence official. In plain English, she took hundreds of thousands of dollars from the CCP. She took hundreds of thousands of dollars from a top intelligence official of the Chinese Communist Party. Forget Swalwell sleeping with a spy, despicable as that is. This is even worse. She's compromised. She has deep fight. This is irrefutable. We have the checks. We have the receipts. We have the fundraising. We have the campaign. We have the accounts. We have the money spent, the money donated. She's compromised. And as I said on X, and I want to repeat it, where the hell's Pam Bondi? Where's Kash Patel? She needs to be investigated immediately as a possible agent of China. She's a traitor. And now it all starts to make sense, doesn't it? Her crazy Maoist politics, her radical leftism, her determination to destroy one of the greatest cities in America, her constantly putting the needs and interests, not just of illegals, but of the Chinese and the Chi-Coms first, always, including, by the way, flying the communist Chinese flag from City Hall. She's on the take. Where's the media? Where's the Herald? Where's the Globe? 4, 5, 7, Channel 10, Channel 25, WGBH, WBUR. I'm like a broken record. I always say this almost every day. Instead, nothing. Sweep it under the rug, cover it up. Why? Because they're getting money from China. That's the dirty secret of the American media. Most politicians are bought off by China. Most think tanks have been bought off by China. So what's happened now is you have a media political class that literally is beholden to our mortal enemy. And if you want to know why, they're all panicking over the tariffs. What panicking? They're all saying, it's a horrible idea. It's a bad idea. Janet Yellen, former Fed chair. You want to see how she's bought and paid for? Former Fed chair. Treasury Secretary, Joe Biden, China Joe. How much money did he make? And his family, how much did they line their pockets from dealing with Beijing and the CCP? She now came out on a big interview on CNBC. I don't want to even play the cut. It's disgusting. That restoring manufacturing in America as Trump wants is, quote unquote, a pipe dream. Quote unquote, it's not even desirable. So let me get this straight. You don't want us to make anything anymore? Everything now has to be made in China? And you want to keep up with these massive $300, $400, $500 billion trade deficits forever? What, until they completely bankrupt us? And you call yourself an American? Follow the money. Follow the money. And I'm telling you, it's this greed, it's this corruption, it's this betrayal that is going to do this country in. Not by you, not by me, but by the corrupt elites, whether it be in the media or in the Democratic Party and increasingly now in the Republican Party. Michelle Wu is dirty. Michelle Wu is crooked. Michelle Wu is taking Chinese money. Now you know why she wants me off the air. Now you know why the major newspapers want me off the air. Now you know why the establishments of both parties want me off the air. Because they want a slice of that pie. And they want to continue to play this game of I oppose you, you oppose me, but in the end, it's the uniparty. And they just keep getting richer and richer and thicker and fatter as you and I get poorer and poorer and poorer. And now, to bring it full circle, who do you think wants to see our country flooded with illegals? China. Who do you think wants to see our country inundated with invaders? Criminals, gangbangers, drugs, fentanyl. Most of it produced in China, shipped to the Mexican drug cartels. China. They've been waging a war against us for the last 30 years. A hybrid war, an economic war, a border war, a trade war, a technology war. Trump is the only president in my lifetime that is finally saying, we're going to fight back. And he's the bad guy? And they're going to turn this El Salvadorian criminal, MS-13, human trafficker and terrorist, you're going to try to convince us that this guy is now some kind of a martyr for the Constitution of the United States? Because we deported him back, as we should, to his country of origin? I mean, if they can convince you of that, they can convince you of anything. What they're really saying is, no, you're not going to deport MS-13. You're not going to deport criminal illegals. You don't get to run this country. We, the deep state, and the corrupt judges do. We run foreign policy. You don't run foreign policy. You don't control the borders. We control the borders, or lack of control. This guy belongs in El Salvador. He should have been deported. He has been deported. There is no issue here. Agree, disagree. Carrie in West Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Carrie, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. As far as Michelle Wu goes, don't worry about Michelle Wu. I'm sure we'll all be getting a strongly worded email from Amy Carnevale denouncing Michelle Wu. So don't worry about that at all. As far as the Democrats go, there's two things to really understand about the Democrats. Number one, they genuinely hate this country. They hate its founding. They hate its principles. They hate its constitution. They hate its religious origins. I know people don't like to think about that, but it is true. The Constitution was, of course, based on the Magna Carta, which the Magna Carta was based on the Bible. So they absolutely hate this country. And the second thing about the Democrats is they really, it's the thing that we're not supposed to talk about, we're not supposed to notice, and it's called the Great Replacement Theory. They want to replace us with all of these, unvetted, uneducated, unskilled foreign people because they're easily controlled.
Carrie, caller of the week. So far, I'm telling you, caller of the week. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, I want to play this cut. This is the cut now that is getting so much attention, which to me is nothing more than saying, the equivalent of saying the sky is blue. I think it's obvious that the liberal media hates America, as Carrie in West Bridgewater, I thought, really eloquently and articulately laid it out. They hate our founding. They hate our Constitution. They hate our Bill of Rights. They hate our history. They hate everything about our country. They hate our economic system. They hate, you name it. They can't stand us. Every aspect of being an American embarrasses them, and they want to get rid of it. Well, listen now to Trump. He's looking at President Bukele of El Salvador, and he's talking about, how the numbers have literally plummeted at the border, how this invasion has now been reduced to a trickle, almost a 97% drop now at the border. Deportations are getting ramped up. The numbers are phenomenal. But he says, they keep lying, the fake news, like CNN. And then he dropped the hammer. Roll cut 9A. Mike.
As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
They hate our country, actually. And he was pointing towards Caitlin Collins when he made that comment. And, of course, all hell has broken loose. All hell has broken loose. All hell. CNN immediately had to respond. I'm not kidding. Dana Bash went right on the air. Hair on fire. Roll cut 10. Mike.
Before I get to you, I just want to say, for the record, since we heard President Trump say in the Oval Office that CNN hates our country, CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. I've been here for 32 years, and I see a rhetorical device in him trying to say such a thing.
Right. No, you hate our country. I follow the money. I don't, the content, everything you spew, the propaganda, the fake news, the lies, the misinformation, the disinformation. But all I got to do is follow your money. Follow the money. And it's obvious. You're taking money from the deep state and you're taking money from the Chinese. And of course, Big Pharma. And that's another reason. They don't want Big Pharma to have to reshore their supply chains, whether it's Pfizer, Moderna, whatever, back into the United States under this trade war, this tariff war. Because Big Pharma wants to, exploit the cheap labor that they can, use in China. And the very lax regulations and everything else, all the benefits of setting up shop in China. And so, of course, CNN is going to do the bidding of the communist Chinese. So, you phony, you fraud, you. I swear to you, I would respect them more if they were open and honest and said, yeah, we're in the pocket of communist China. Yeah, we hate America. Yeah, we want to bring it down. At least I'd say, hey, like the old communists that ran the Soviet Union and the Soviet Empire. Sure, they're communists, but at least they're honest communists. These people today, they're not even honest communists. They're lying communists. Agree, disagree? So let me ask you, throw this log on the fire. Do you think Trump should not have said that CNN and the liberal media hate America? The left is going nuts, saying he's slandering the media. He's talking down to the media. This is hurting freedom of the press by impugning their motives. I say the truth hurts, and the truth shall set you free. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Roman in Boston. Thanks for holding, Roman, and welcome.
Jeff, how are you?
Very good. How are you, Roman?
I'm okay. Jeff, I'm on the back nine of this thing called life. I'm 58 years old, into my career as a police officer, and I just want the media to come to the greater Boston area and see how fantastic it is living down there. We're in a society that lionizes Mike Brown, Luigi Mangione, George Floyd, when the J6s were rotted in a gulag, and they also demonized Elon Musk for saving astronauts, and they shows their appreciation by burning down his dealerships. The Supreme Court yesterday, now you answer me this question, Jeff, did they come out backing Zinnis, saying that the administration does have to, or their opinion was that he has to return that guy from jail?
No, what they said was they should help facilitate his return. Not that they even said specifically, because the judge said compel and facilitate. Effectuate. Forgive me. The district court judge said they must effectuate and facilitate his return. The Supreme Court came back and said, no, they can't effectuate anything. First of all, you don't have the authority to order the president to do anything. You don't conduct foreign policy. The president does. And yes, facilitate, but facilitate means remove all domestic obstacles. And as Pam Bondi said, yeah, we'll provide him with a plane. If Bukele wants to return him, we'll provide him with a plane. We'll fly him back. He'll have one more deportation hearing. He's a terrorist. He's a designated terrorist. So he's going to be deported. But if you want to go through the hoops and, dot all the I's and cross the T's, then we will facilitate. We'll offer a plane. Bukele wants to release him from the prison. We'll put him on the plane, send him back. An immigration court judge will again say he's got to go, and then we'll send him back to El Salvador. And this time Bukele will put him in the prison forever. But you can't force the president to do anything. That was the point the Supreme Court was making, and that was 9-0.
Watching, because I was reading the SCOTUS blog, and it was the article was a little confusing. This judicial overreach is just absolutely ridiculous. What's going on in the original against Garcia, the original case in the immigration court, the government brought that his clothing and his caps and all that were part of them recognizing him as MS-13. And Zinnis came out and said that that's not the case, that's not true. I'm here to tell you that clothing is paramount with MS-13. They wear black and red. black and red, and they wear Chicago Bulls caps, and they're tatted up, and it is an immediate indicator of who they're with. It always has been for gangs. Crips, Bloods, MS-13, Latin Kings, 18th Street Boys. That's how they're recognized amongst each other within the gang culture. So Zinnis has lost her marbles on that one. And getting back off topic, how dare Mayor Wu fly China's flag at City Hall in Boston? What is going on with her? Is she out of her mind, Jeff?
Well, that's the thing, Roman. Look, I'll be honest with you. You can fly any flag but the American flag at City Hall in Boston. And it's the same in Chicago, and it's the same in L.A., and it's the same in New York. I mean, that's just the left in this country now have abandoned all pretense of having any allegiance to the United States. Look, I don't want to, I mentioned this yesterday, so I don't want to repeat material that I've already, ground that I've gone over. But AOC, Alexandria Fidel Castro Cortez, who, by the way, is leading Chuck Schumer in the polls, if she was to challenge him in the Democratic primary, she's now 10 points ahead of Schumer. She would beat Chuck Schumer. This is the clout that the radical left has in their own party. Schumer was Senate Majority Leader. He's now Senate Minority Leader. On paper, he's the most powerful Democrat in Congress. What is she, a 30-something barista? That's what she is, essentially. She would clean his clock in a Democratic primary. It wouldn't even be close. She did an interview with other influencers like Megan Rapinoe and others, and they're all nodding their head up and down like idiots, like woke idiots. And she said that the United States is a fundamentally unjust and oppressive country from its very roots, and that it deserves to decline, and that she supports, and it will, she says, have an ultimate downfall. That our economic system is so oppressive, our political system is so oppressive, that the United States must and will and should collapse so that a socialist new order can be born in its place. I mean, it's open. They're not even hiding it. You see, they used to hide their communism. They would say one thing to the electorate to get elected, and then, in other words, govern more or campaign more as a moderate, and then govern as a radical leftist. Okay? No, they don't hide it anymore. They're open. They're naked about it. She is a Marxist revolutionary. She sees herself as a female Fidel Castro. So they'll fly any communist flag, any flag over America, except Israel's. That's it. Okay, outside of that, they'll fly any other flag. But China, for them, is their communist or communist motherland, the way the Soviet Union used to be their communist motherland. And look, don't take my word for it. Bloomberg is cheering on China. CNBC, these are big financial networks, television networks. They're cheering on communist China. On social media, the Democratic Party, liberals, the left, they are going wild for communist China. They want the Chinese communists to win the trade war and defeat Trump in America. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. This is not a matter of opinion. It's a fact. And now, to me, forget flying the flag, which is disgusting. To me, it's the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we know of. I think there's a lot more. I think it's the tip of the iceberg. She's swimming in Chinese money. And not only is Michelle Wu swimming in Chinese money, but she's swimming in Chinese money and being controlled by a top official, an intelligence official of the Chinese Communist Party. Hello? She's compromised. She needs to be investigated as a possible traitor and as an agent of China. And the media won't touch this story with a 10-foot pole. And that's why nothing ever changes. Because they don't want an honest, real media. When you have an honest, real media, they destroy that person. Because they don't want you to know the truth. Because then the truth will force the Republicans to fight, and they don't want to fight. Because they're also in bed with the Chinese. So that's why we have to shake things up with the truth. And that's why, Roman, I'm telling you, we're going to win this battle. Because we finally got a patriot in the White House. And Trump is fighting for us. So, and look, he is right. Again, they're going on. Again, I got the screens up here. Again, they're going on about this El Salvadorian. Again. Like I'm telling you, you would think this guy's Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King, for God's sakes. He's Nelson Mandela. Like a martyr who's been unjustly imprisoned. Like, again. So that's why they're backing this illegal alien to the hilt. What they're trying to do is they're trying to tell Trump, you are not going to deport people out of the United States. You don't run foreign policy. We run foreign policy. You don't control the borders. We control the borders. And they're going to lose. But look at how deranged and rabid they've become. That, to me, is what's frightening. 617-266-6868 is the number. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
First of all, Jeff, 76% of Americans support Trump in securing the border, and 81% support deporting illegal criminals who have committed crimes. So that's just the facts right there, okay? So, and I'm going to repeat this, okay? When you talk about these judges, over 50% are tied to, they're progressive activists. They're violating the Constitution, separation of powers. These people are bought and paid for. Their family members, their wives are tied to NGOs, and they're getting consultant jobs, paying hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're bought and paid for. So that being said, Jeff, you got these. You got Mark Elias. Okay, he was the founder with John Podesta of corrupt organizations like Democracy Forward, a nonprofit created in 2017. Okay, both tied to this Steele dossier, the Russian collusion hoax funded by George Soros. And you got Norm Ellison is a co-founder of the Crew, you know, and tied to the state of democracy defenders. These guys are all tied into this stuff. Okay. He was involved. He was involved in the sham impeachment trial. He was the special counsel to Adam Schiff during the impeachment trial against President Trump. That's what's going on. And even you, Jeff, you said it the other day about these illegal criminals voting, okay, with Social Security numbers in New Hampshire elections and other states as well. The biggest rigging of elections in New Hampshire comes from Manchester. The mayor in Manchester is a Republican by name only, Jay Rouet. He sides with the Marxist, Socialist, Communist Democrats. And listen, he never went. Kelly Ayotte, Governor Sununu, Governor Kelly Ayotte, and Jay Rouet never went to a Trump event the whole time. But Jay Rouet met corrupt Joe Biden at the Manchester airport, shaking hands and getting pictures. Okay, this is who they are, Jeff.
Dan, look, what you're describing is, if you've ever seen the movie Braveheart, which is one of my favorite movies, you're describing the Scottish nobles who kept backstabbing William Wallace, the patriot, and his supporters again and again because they were bought and paid for by the English, okay, at the time. And what William Wallace ended up realizing is, until I wipe out the Scottish nobles, Scotland will never be free. Scotland will never have its independence. We will never be able to beat the English because we constantly have an enemy that's stabbing us in the back. And that's the fundamental problem now with the Republican Party. What you're describing now, these are the rhinos, the establishment, the globalist Republicans. And the worst thing about him, and look, again, I go back to the story of Jesus. This is Holy Week, okay? It's going to be Holy Thursday in a couple of days. It's going to be Good Friday 3 days from now. And we know the story. It's a very powerful story. Whether you believe in Jesus as being, the Son of God or not, it's the central seminal story of Western civilization. He was betrayed by one of his own, Judas. For what? 30 pieces of silver, which, by the way, in those days was a lot of money. And Judas insisted to him, kissed him on the cheek, saying, I will never betray you. So to everyone else, he was his best friend. He was his closest disciple, his biggest follower, his most beloved, his apostle who loved him the most. In private, he kept scheming to have him crucified and killed. History keeps repeating itself. It's human nature. And what the Chinese, to their credit, have understood, and look, Xi Jinping has famously said this. This is it's on a public record. He said, we will take over America, quote, without ever firing a single shot. Why? Because their politicians are corrupt. Their media is corrupt. They can be bought and paid for. And to be brutally honest, what shocks the Chinese is how cheap our politicians and our journalists are. They'll say, they buy up other countries. They go, I'm telling you, to buy up other countries, you got to spend a lot of money. We thought when it came to the superpower of the world, this would be, it would cost us half our GDP. No, you can buy them. They bought Michelle Wu for $200,000. What did they buy Joe Biden for? Less than $1 billion. I'm telling you, I swear to you, you can look it up. You want to buy the mayor of Moscow. You know what the mayor of Moscow's asking price is? $1 billion. That's just the mayor of Moscow. It's got to be $1 billion. They bought the president of the United States for $1 billion. So the Chi-Coms, it's cheap. To buy off CNN, it's a couple million here, a couple million there. MSNBC, a couple million here, a couple million there. I mean, it doesn't take much. So this is our fundamental downfall as a country. It's greed. Now, I'm not saying it's you, it's me, it's this audience or Trump. That's the thing. You see, what the Chinese are now realizing to their shock and horror is they've woken up and they said, well, we bought off all the politicians. How are we suddenly now in this trade war that we can't win? That could potentially break our economic back because they couldn't buy off Donald Trump. The one guy they needed to buy off, they couldn't buy off. And to give him his due, Elon Musk, because he's worth $400 billion. He doesn't care for Chinese money. So the fact of the matter is, I believe, again, that Trump was sent by God. I'm sorry, I'm just calling it the way I see it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me ask all of you, what do you make of this media's and the Democrats' really obsession, there's just no other word, for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, this MS-13 illegal alien terrorist, gangbanger, human trafficker from Maryland, who through an administrative error was deported to El Salvador on one of the first plane loads when Tren de Aragua and MS-13 were being shipped off by Trump, deported by Trump to that mega prison in El Salvador. And the media have turned this now into a cause célèbre. They're turning him into a martyr. I don't know what they think he's, what he's sacrificing himself for, but they claiming that his due process rights have been violated, that he never should have been deported, that this man is a father and a husband or whatever, has a wife, and that if Trump can do this to Garcia, to this MS-13 thug, again, a criminal illegal alien, well, then they can just deport anybody. They can deport you. They can deport me. They can deport any American. Not just any illegal, but any American. This is now the narrative that they're trying to push. Will it work? Or do you think Trump successfully destroyed it in, to me, one of the best press conferences I've ever seen? Yesterday, did he defuse the issue? 617-266-6868. Miranda in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Miranda, and welcome.
Okay, I'll answer your question, but then there's something else I called to tell you about. Yes, he diffused it, but not to their satisfaction, because as soon as he gets done with them, then they'll talk about the Palestinian students that he's deporting. So no matter how right he is, they'll always find another extreme case. And my answer to these people is, if they came into your home, if you had guests in your home, and the guests were saying, oh, your food is terrible, oh, your house smells, you would say, leave. And then if they persisted in coming, you just have them thrown out. These people that are telling us, you know, about other people's rights, these bleeding hearts, but they would not put up with that kind of behavior. So I got that off my chest. But here's what I really called to tell you, Jeff. Listening to you can be so frustrating. You have a habit. You'll say, you use proper nouns the first time. You'll say Healy and Wu. And then for the rest of the show, you go those two. You'll say the Boston Herald and the Washington Post. And then you'll go those two papers. So if people walk away from the radio, I mean, we're not glued to our... I know it's hard to remember. But, you know, instead of using pronouns, if we walk away from the radio, we don't really know who you're talking about if we didn't hear you the first time.
So, for example, Miranda, like if I say Boston Globe and Boston Herald, and then a couple sentences later I go those two papers, Miranda, you're saying I should be more specific and say the Herald and the Globe again, correct? On second reference?
But didn't hear you the first time, and then you'll go on your, you know, diatribe, which is fine, but we don't know who you're talking about because we missed it the first time.
I got you. So you'd like me to be a little bit more specific if I'm talking about certain people or certain newspapers or media outlets, and not just say them or those, but if need be, repeat their names, correct?
Happens with you and me almost every day. I'm running around trying to get out of the house, and I say, who's he talking about? Who did he say? So it's frustrating, but otherwise I love your show.
Well, Miranda, I was going to ask you, if you don't mind, I thought you were going to school me on my grammar. That's what I thought you were leading with this with. I thought that's where you were going with this, because Sandy will often once in a while say, well, that's not grammatically correct, and the audience does that all the time. So I thought or my pronunciation of certain words. I thought that's what really gets under your skin, Miranda. Does that bother you too, or is it just this?
Communication. So we get what you're saying, no matter how you pronounce the word or backwards or forwards. But it's just sometimes I don't know who you're talking about if I didn't catch it the first time.
I got you. Miranda, you know what? Thank you. I love constructive feedback. And I will be much more attentive to that. I will do my best. And Miranda, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. To go back to her first point, and again, if it's frustrating for you, I apologize, and I'll try to be even, more attentive and more accurate when I talk about, those papers or those people. I don't mind repeating myself. That's okay. But no, look, if someone squatted into your home, if someone broke into your home, and then began to abuse you, or rape your wife, or assault you, or murder members of your family, you don't have the right to kick them out of your house? 8:32 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You know what? It's again, not really off topic because we're talking about multiple things today on the show, but I just found this very powerful and very moving. And it's a message that I received on Messenger from Marianne, who now lives in Florida. But she said, Jeff, I got to get this off my chest. And the only reason why I'm reading it, it's so true. And I think many of us here that live in Massachusetts, especially those of us in the greater Boston area or within, driving distance of Boston, I think we tend to forget what an incredible history Boston and really the entire state has. And the reason why this really strikes a chord with me is I'm going to even do it today after the show. I'm taking a little time off. I'm back on the air tomorrow, but just a few hours for myself. And I like to go to one of these great historic spots. I don't want to say where because there's a lot of liberals out there who hate me and want to stalk me and God knows what they want to do to me. But I do this periodically. And it's one of the great joys of living in Massachusetts is that you can go and almost touch and feel the history of our country and especially the American Revolution. And I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. And it's not original to me. Many historians have pointed this out. Boston is the cradle of the American Revolution. Boston is the cradle of American liberty. It is. And many people who live here or in the area or in the state, we've almost forgotten that. And that's very sad to me. It's very tragic. And here's what Marianne wrote. Good morning, Jeff. I hope you and the family are well. Well, thank you, Marianne. I hope you and your family are well. It's a shame about Michelle Wu. She is turning probably the, in caps, historically most patriotic city in America into I can't say this on the air, into a crap hole of wokeness, corruption, and liberal crazy. Look at all of the original, in caps, patriots that are buried in the historic cemeteries in Boston, the Freedom Trail, the historic houses like Paul Revere's home. Why do the liberals have to ruin absolutely everything? Why do they want to destroy everything historical that brought America to greatness? It is so sad, it brings tears. I don't have an answer for anything. I'm just ranting. No, I hear you. That's the emotional pull that I feel when I see a Marxist like Michelle Wu, and I believe now with all this new information, a communist traitor, a Chinese traitor. When you're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars, as she did, from a top Chinese Communist Party intelligence official, you're a traitor. And I think you're in the pocket of the Chinese. And I think that explains a lot of what she's been doing to the city now for the last, almost 4 years. But this is, to me, one of the great American cities. And the history, the heritage, the founding, the patriots, so much of our past, and that we're just willing to throw it all away. We can't allow them to win. We can't. And I believe in the end we are going to win. I know it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying there's not a lot of moonbats. I'm not saying this is not a deep blue state. It is. I'm not saying we don't have a steep mountain to climb. But to me, we have so much on our side. All we have to do is speak the truth. And I believe eventually we will prevail. And so, anyway, but I just wanted to share that because it's so true. Now, look at what the left is doing. Okay, this is, to me, you can't wrap your mind around this. This is Senator Chris Van Hollen. I mentioned him earlier, Moonbat from Maryland. Now, in a Twitter video, he was so enraged about what he saw at the White House yesterday. How dare Bukele not want to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia? How dare Trump essentially not kidnap this guy from that jail in El Salvador? Kidnap him and fly him back. Because this MS-13 gangbanger, that's illegal. deserves to be back in America. Return him home. Roll cut 12, Mike.
The Trump administration's foot dragging in bringing Abrego Garcia home is absolutely unacceptable. They illegally abducted him and got him out of the country in 72 hours. They can get him home in less than that. All they need to do is send somebody from the U.S. Embassy to the prison and have him released. After all, the United States is paying El Salvador to keep him there. This was a 9-0 decision by the Supreme Court, and now they need to stop foot dragging and bringing him back. This is contemptuous action. I will leave it to the judge as to when contempt charges need to be filed. But he needs to come home, and he needs to come home now. I met just the other day with his wife, with his mother, with his brother. The family's traumatized. They're worried, of course, minute to minute about what might happen to him in that notorious prison. And the Trump administration needs to get him home, and they need to stop lying about this case.
This is unbelievable. I mean, this is really unbelievable. I met with the mother. I met with the wife. I met with the brother. He was abducted. No, he was deported. He's afraid of what's going to happen to him in that prison. Well, did you ever think about all of his victims? What about all the women he trafficked? What about all the girls he trafficked? God knows. What about all the people he murdered or raped? Maybe, you know what? If you're worried what's going to happen to you with, because there's a rivalry between Tren de Aragua and MS-13. So if you're worried about what may happen to you in that prison, maybe you should, hey, tough guy, maybe you shouldn't have joined MS-13 in the first place. So look, I mean, you want to talk about a bleeding heart. So my heart has to bleed for this gangbanger, again, who is a criminal illegal alien. So we're not supposed to deport illegal aliens now? Criminals, illegal? No, because he claims to have a wife and kid. So that excuses everything. But it continues. It's not just the Democrats. Listen to this. Here's Jeffrey Toobin, legal analyst on This Is CNN. Listen to this. He's practically crying. Listen to this. Roll cut 13. Mike.
They are now trying to present Mr. Abrego Garcia as the criminal that the government acknowledged just a few days ago that he wasn't.
Can I just ask, you both seem to agree the Supreme Court may have been more deliberate in its language than a lot of people are, analyzing here. What do you think the Supreme Court thinks about all this? What do you think the Chief Justice thinks when he sees this man not being returned?
I think they're very, very cautious, and they don't want a confrontation with the president. That's why the language is so cautious. But I think they want him returned.
Well, but I also think they do not want an international confrontation that they cause, and they will be very deferential. If El Salvador says we are simply not turning him over, I bet this Supreme Court will say, well, there's nothing that can be done in that case.
You don't think this man is coming back?
I don't think he's coming back, basically,
I'm still
ever.
hopeful.
I mean, you can't make this up. You're praying, you're hopeful. Again, it's Holy Week, so forgive me if it's constant religious analogies and everything goes back to Good Friday. They're crying for Barabbas. I'm telling you, that's what this is. This guy's Barabbas. Remember the story. People keep forgetting this. Pontius Pilate says, okay, I'm going to release Jesus. The guy's innocent. He hasn't done anything. No. The crowd wanted Barabbas, a murderer, a thief. In fact, he was a member of a gang, a criminal gang. And what did the crowd call? No, give us Barabbas, free Barabbas, crucify Jesus, not Barabbas. They're crying for Barabbas. This one, you got to hear it to believe it. Today, it's Garcia. Tomorrow, it's you or me. Roll cut 14, Mike.
As Justice Sotomayor noted last week, the Trump administration's claim legally is that they can take anyone in the United States and disappear them to a foreign country, and that even if they acknowledge that that was an error of any kind, that they are powerless to bring that person back to the country. That's not just about Mr. Garcia. It's not just about illegal immigrants. It's not about criminal illegal immigrants. It's about everybody in the United States. Anybody is what their legal claim is. Justice Sotomayor, as I said, made this very clear last week. That's the principle and the legal precedent that's at stake here, and it is setting up, if there's anything, we may or may not be in a constitutional crisis already, but if the administration continues to hew to that line, we will be in an unequivocal constitutional crisis, and I think that day is very, very close at hand.
617-266-6868 is the number. Let me ask all of you this. Now the left and the media are pushing a narrative. I swear to you. You heard John Heilman on MSNBC. Okay, we just played it before the break. That Trump wants to disappear anyone. Disappear anyone. Not just migrants. We're in a constitutional crisis. We have a dictator in the White House. And suddenly now people are just going to be randomly taken off the streets. Or people that oppose this regime, this what they call a junta, this so-called fascist dictatorship, that you're just going to be abducted off the streets, the way they claim Abrego Garcia was, and then just sent off to this mega prison in El Salvador. Now, let me ask you two questions. Number one, are you concerned that you can be deported? Are you concerned that you could just be arbitrarily arrested and sent off to some supermax prison in El Salvador? And number two, are we now entering the fever swamps? Are we now seeing, really, the left and the media become completely and utterly unhinged? With now, this puts the Russia collusion hoax, really makes it seem almost mild now compared to what they're peddling. Now they're talking about disappearing people off the streets, that this is what Trump is now doing. You're here one day, you're in a prison in El Salvador the next day. And that this is what's happening across the entire country. We just don't know about it yet, but it's taking place. Are we now, seriously, are we watching now one of the most absurd and insane conspiracy theories of all time? And if this is what the left and the Democrats and the media have degenerated into, are we now watching them become literally the inmates running the asylum? 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Jeff, these are glory days for me. These are days that I never thought would come. I'm telling you, it is unbelievable, okay?
But Russ, hold on now. Come on, people are being disappeared, Russ. They're being kidnapped. They're being abducted. Like this poor father, this Maryland man. His mother's crying for him, his children, his wife, his brother, and he's in a supermax in El Salvador. Russ, how dare you be so cold-hearted like this?
Face it, okay? The cat's out of the bag, all right? They cannot get away with BS as they've gotten away with it for years. The majority of American people see the light with these SOBs, Jeff, okay? Let's face it. The left-stream media is completely exposed for their fraud and everything else. The Democratic Party would be exposed as the enemy within. Just think about this, Jeff, today. Today's leaders of the Democratic Party, AOC, a Jew hater, and Bernie Sanders, a self-hating Jew, that's the leaders of the Democratic Party, Jeff. It is absolutely incredible. But I'll tell you, things that make me so happy, okay, when I see the Vice President of the United States get together with other Marines, put on a pair of fatigues, and then going out there and firing off a few rounds. to me, as a veteran, it doesn't get any better than that. Okay. Then we have the Secretary of Defense getting down and doing PT with the troops. Another Marine. Jeff, I'll tell you. Thank God this country is back on the right track again, and I am totally optimistic. And I never thought the day would come that I would see the manufacturing jobs coming back to the United States of America. And it is so important to create millions of entry-level jobs for Americans. It's just incredible, Jeff. And Trump is the only individual that could ever pull this off. There was no other master negotiator, master showman in the United States of America that ever pull this off, Jeff. You know, and for those of us that love this country and are patriots, again, happy days are here again.
You know, Russ, it's funny you should say that because, it was just it was over the weekend. So maybe 2-3 days ago. And I was, time to go to bed. Kids are in bed. Grace and I are sleeping. And I guess I was like about to fall asleep with my I was smiling with a smile on. And Grace was like, what are you smiling about? She goes, and I said, honestly, I'm just so darn happy. Trump is in the White House. She's laughing. She goes, are you serious? I go, no, I swear. I love his tariffs. I love what he's doing with the border. I love how he's deporting all these gangbangers and illegals. I said, I was like, I was listing everything. I love how he's drill, baby, drill. I just went on and on. I said, I just can't tell you how happy I am that he's in the White House and we got an America First president. I feel like pinch me. I can't believe we did it. It's here. It's happening. So I agree with you, Russ. Really, to me, it's like happy days are here again. And to see the media and the Democrats, to see their heads explode like this and to reduce them to the point, Russ, they're begging and pleading, crying for an MS-13 terrorist, an illegal. Russ, it doesn't get any better than this, man. It really doesn't. Final word to you, my friend.
Oh, Jeff, another thing, okay? President Trump, a man that believes in God, family, and country. What is he doing this week? He's publicly celebrating Holy Week, okay? I'm telling you, that man has the biggest set of cojones than anyone that walks the face of this earth.
Russ, God bless you. And again, thank you for your service. Thank you for your call as always, my friend. God, country, family. To me, that sums up MAGA in a nutshell. And it sums me up. It's what this show's about. It's what I'm about. God, country, family. Kim in Brighton. Thanks for holding, Kim, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure, Kim.
I wanted to comment on the meeting between President Bukele and President Trump, my two favorite leaders.
Yes.
I was in El Salvador in October, and it's truly amazing what he's done, and he is a man of God. And I am a huge fan of Bukele. But your earlier conversation or your question, that the fact that the media conflates the deportation of an MS-13 illegal alien citizen of El Salvador with this disappearing of some U.S. taxpayer to some other country for an unknown reason is insane. To Mark's point, Mark from New Hampshire, to his point, he said he doesn't believe that the media or the leaders really believe this nonsense. But obviously, the voters do, because it's the same as when the voters say Trump is Hitler. So Hitler was a left-wing socialist, and Trump is a free market capitalist, and they conflate the two. And they're so stupid or ignorant or blinded by hatred, I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's mass formation psychosis, but the fact that they can take two completely unrelated or even opposing ideas and think they're the same is really troubling. Like with the electric cars, like last week, that's metaphorically. Last week, EVs should be mandated for everyone and people should be forced to have them against their will. And this week, they're firebombing electric car dealers, and it seems to be okay. But I believe alliance between Bukele and Trump is absolutely wonderful, because it's true. In 2015, it was the murder capital of the world, and now it's safer than America. It's the smallest country in Central and South America, population like 6 million. And then people are starting to really criticize Bukele for what he did, and he said while it's true that he had arrested thousands, he freed millions. And Trump loved that comment. I was watching it all on X last night and yesterday. And I just think it's really great. But the difference between the two countries is that the people were behind Bukele. And as I look at our country with the crumbling infrastructure, I was recently in Connecticut, and the roads, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, I think it's like a plan that we're just supposed to fall apart. I really do, because there's no desire to change. And in El Salvador, as soon as those doors open and you leave the airport, that country's open for business. The vibe, it's amazing. And we need to do a better job of messaging and getting behind Trump. You have a lot of really crazy people, men can be women, they're screaming so loud, nobody hears the U.S. taxpayer and nobody hears the voice of the rational. And I think that's very troubling.
Kim, if you don't mind me asking, because you mentioned how you had been recently to, 4, 5, 6 months ago, in October, that you had been to El Salvador. I've been reading about the miracle, really it's a miracle, what Bukele has pulled off there, that you're right, it went from the murder capital of the world, where people were getting slaughtered on the streets. MS-13 was rampaging. It was a criminal state. It was a mafia state. And drug dealers were running wild. And now men, women, children can walk the streets at night. You can walk, downtown and at midnight. It's safe. He has hammered the gangs. He has imprisoned many of the gangs. Yes, he cracked skulls. Yes, it was tough. It was law and order. Yes, there's no question about it. He was ferocious in going after them. But that's what it takes to beat a gang war. That's what it takes to beat these thugs. And I'm just curious, Kim, you said the people of El Salvador were behind him. How safe is El Salvador? And as American, did you feel safer there? Or do you feel safer, let's say, in Brighton or in the greater Boston area? And when you walk the streets as a woman, where do you feel safer, El Salvador or Brighton? Well, I have to say that El Salvador is completely changed. I've been to 11 countries in the region. I do wildlife photography as a hobby, and I never walk around. I always stay in the Hilton, but in El Salvador, I walked by myself alone, down the road, walking, went to a Starbucks, which is new. It was amazing, and I had no fear, and I am a very high fear person. So it's very safe, and you can just see it has the vibe. But again, the people were behind him, and that weekend when there are different conflicting, 84 or 87 people who were killed over the weekend, and the military came in on Monday, and the whole country changed because MS-13 owned El Salvador. They owned it. And if you've watched any videos of the CCOT prison, some of those videos have over 90 million views. And some people actually feel sorry for these people, but I recently watched one where they have videos that they would do it again. They interviewed the MS-13 gangbangers. They love what they did, and Bukele's doing the only thing that you can do. You can't. The recidivism rate would be 100%. This is what they want to do, and so I felt extremely safe. I've never walked alone, even staying at the Hilton, anywhere, and I didn't even really think about it, and that was. Yeah, there's a lot of traffic and there's smog, so there was that. But aside from that, it was wonderful. I would go back in a heartbeat alone. Are the people? I know they supported him in the crackdown, but are the people of El Salvador? Do they back Bukele overall? Is he popular in El Salvador? His face is on aprons, mugs, hats, T-shirts, keychains. They're like shrines. We climbed the volcanoes. The altitude is very high. It's one thing you have to
that bothered me for a day because I was 6,000 feet up and I wasn't really prepared. And when you get to the top there, little kiosks, souvenirs, Kayla's face all over everything. I asked every single person, from the cab drivers to our tour operators, what do you think of Bukele? The older people, I mean, like, they almost cried. They loved him so much. One young person said, I like what he did, but I wouldn't wear his face on an apron, kind of tongue-in-cheek. But the older people who remembered what life was like, they're very grateful because they are free.
So essentially they love the guy.
Hate him, and on the video that I watched, they said he said if there's any kind of gathering of any criminal element in El Salvador, he said your homeboys, that's the word he used, your homeboys in CCOT won't get any more food. I mean, he is that serious.
We could use a guy. I mean, to me, it's almost like he's the Trump of El Salvador. I mean, I was going to say we could use a guy like him here, but we've got a guy like him here. Kim, very quick. Trump said in an interview that I think it's going to air later today, but he said that, with very violent American criminals, okay, really the worst of the worst, murderers, our own gangbangers, rapists, he says, if it's legal, only if it's legal, he goes, I wouldn't mind sending them to those supermax prisons in El Salvador. Would you support, if it passes constitutional muster, would you support that? Should we start sending our own worst violent criminals and offenders to go rot in one of those supermax prisons?
I think a lot of Democrat politicians could go along with them, so yeah. But you should watch the videos. It's amazing. It's an amazing place, and they're never getting out. They get no visitors, and they have prison sentences of over 100 years. They're never getting out.
That's
ever.
Good. That's my kind of guy. Kim, great call. Very informative. Thank you so much. And look, I just want to read this text. You can text, by the way, 70470, 70470. This is from 617. Jeff, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13, for goodness sakes. The very initiation requirements alone for membership are a list of sadistic and violent crimes. Yeah, either you have to rape someone or murder someone. That's how you get into the gang. You don't rape or you don't murder, you don't get in. So that's what we're talking about when these, moonbats are crying for this guy to come back home. What home? I mean, he's from El Salvador, but to bring him back to Maryland. That's what they're crying over. This is from 508. Jeff, this is our historical moment. We must cease wasting our time, energy, and resources trying to persuade liberals. It's high time to just ignore them and roll over them. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Keith in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Keith, and welcome. Keith, do we have you? All right, let's see if we can reconnect with Keith. Ralph in Roslindale. Thanks for holding, Ralph, and welcome.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Ralph?
Just a quick thing I want to say. They jailed the J6s without any due process, too.
Ralph, I'm sorry. We can barely hear you. Can you speak up a little bit?
I'm saying they took the J6s after they supposedly stormed the Capitol, and they put them in jail without any due process.
Brilliant. You're completely right. There was no due process for many of the J6ers. And notice, no one in the media, not one Democrat cried. Chris Van Hollen didn't cry. John Heilemann wasn't crying on MSNBC. We're in a constitutional crisis. Jeffrey Toobin wasn't running around on CNN saying, oh my God, our Constitution, our Constitution. Will they ever be free? Can they ever return home to their families? Notice, Ralph, They didn't give a damn for the J6ers, and they were American citizens. Okay? Overall, decent American patriots, the overwhelming majority of them. This guy is not even an American. He's a criminal, illegal, and a terrorist. And they're going on about his due process? Ralph, do you think they mean it? You think the media is serious? Or you think they're just trying to say and do anything to hurt Trump?
I think that it's trying to hurt Trump. They're trying to make him look bad, and all the liberals are right behind them 100%.
Yeah, Ralph, that's the sense I get as well, that this is fear-mongering. That's all this is. And they're trying to create, again, another hoax, another false narrative. This time, he's kidnapping people off the streets. They just went in and grabbed them. And then they abducted him. And they sent them to this gulag in El Salvador, this supermax prison. He's Hitler. He's a Nazi. That's the BS narrative, the bull crap they're trying to push. And I think the American people are saying, nah. You know, notice the sky's always falling with them. It's always doom and gloom. The sky is falling, dictatorship around the corner, and it never happens. And you want us to look at this thug and murderer and sex trafficker as a martyr? I don't think so. I don't shed a tear for MS-13, and neither should anybody else. Ralph, thank you for that call. Manny in Ipswich. Thanks for holding, Manny, and welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Jeff?
Good. How are you, Manny?
Not too bad. Well, I'm in Everett now. But I'm calling about, but really, I just got back to work, so I listened to you in the truck. I work part-time, and there's, stuff that's been set up, because I'm on SSDI, and there's stuff that's been set up for people like me, and I was out of work, and I wasn't able to collect because I didn't make enough. And I hear about all these people that are collecting. They're not even born yet. You have to go through all these stages. And I am for Trump and MAGA, even though it's hurting me,
Manny, can you do me a big favor? Please hang on. I'm up against a hard break, but I want to come back to Manny. Okay, let's go right back to Manny in Ipswich. Manny, you're on Social Security Disability. You're on SSDI. Please pick up where you left off, Manny.
All right. Well, you'd think that I would be a liberal, because you get free money and you're able to do this stuff. But I am a conservative because I want to do things the right way. And, I'm allowed to make $16.20 per month. And I'm allowed to collect, but, for unemployment a little bit. But I've learned to live on that extra $1,600. I count on that. I wasn't able to, I was laid off. I wasn't able to collect. And everybody that I called at, they had a different story. No one knew what they were talking about. And it's just, I don't understand it, and now Doge is probably going to hurt me, but in the long run, it's going to help me, you know what I mean? And it's going to help America. But,
well, Manny, look, let me just say this, and I'm speaking now really from the bottom of my heart. I hope Doge doesn't hurt you. Doge should not hurt you. Doge is intended not to hurt you. What Doge is intended to do is to stop either Social Security checks or unemployment checks or people being enrolled on Medicaid that are going to illegal aliens, people who are not eligible and should not be receiving any of these programs, or to people who are scamming the system, who are just pocketing multiple checks and claiming to be whatever, 120, 130 years old when they're really, 40 years old and fit as a fiddle. So what's going on is people have been abusing these programs. that are intended exactly to help American citizens like you. You have a disability. By the grace of God, there go I. And I want you, and I think I speak for most Americans, we want you to get the assistance that A, you're entitled to, B, you deserve. You deserve it. You're an American. We take care of each other. We take care of our own. What we can't do and what we must not ever do is become now a charity case for the entire world. If we start having illegal aliens getting massive Social Security checks as they are, or 1.3 million of them and counting on Medicaid, or God knows how many of them collecting unemployment insurance, it's going to bankrupt Social Security, it's going to bankrupt Medicare, it's going to bankrupt Medicaid, it's going to bankrupt unemployment, it's going to bankrupt it for all of us. And as Trump and Elon have said repeatedly, we're not doing this to slash people's benefits. Au contraire, on the contrary, we're doing it to save these benefits and save these programs for American citizens, for people, frankly, like you, Manny, that deserve it. You deserve to get SSDI. Of course, you're on disability. And you still want to hold down a job, and you still want to contribute, and you still want to be a productive member of society. That's the whole point. It's there to help you. It's not there to give money to By the way, they're starting to find out now that those bogus BS unemployment checks, those fake checks, they literally were going to people on the terrorist watch list and MS-13 gang members. So it's not enough that they're murdering, raping, stealing. No. They got to suck us dry on the unemployment benefit as well. It's disgusting. So what you're hearing, Manny, from a lot of people, the left, the media, they're lies, and it's fear-mongering. I feel bad. I get people emailing me all the time saying, Jeff, I'm hearing that they're going to cut my Medicare, that Elon wants to cut my Medicaid, that Elon wants to cut my Social Security, that Elon wants to cut my unemployment. They're not going to cut anything unless you're a fraud or you're scamming the system or you're an illegal or whatever. And look, Manny, it's disgusting. You've got people now claiming that they were born 100 years from now, 130 years from now, and they're collecting unemployment checks. That's fraud. That's theft. And what's going to happen is if we don't fix this, we're going to run out of money to take care of people just like you. And Manny, to bring it full circle to our discussion, I will bet anybody the best freaking steak, okay, at their steakhouse of choice. And I'll throw in wine, dessert, appetizer, you name it, okay, the whole 9 yards. This clown, this thug, Abrego Garcia, the one that all the Dems and media are crying about, the El Salvadorian illegal that's now back in El Salvador in that prison, I'll bet you he was scamming Social Security. I bet you he was scamming Medicaid. I bet he was scamming unemployment. I bet this guy had multiple checks coming in on top of all his other criminal activities. I freaking guarantee it. I guarantee it. 617-266-6868 is the number. David in Watertown. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Jeff, you have mentioned local Boston politics today and other days. When Boston has a citywide election, I'm assuming that Michelle Wu will be a candidate. You have, in the past, you've mentioned Jonathan Kraft, son of Patriots owner Bob Kraft. Yesterday, I came across a third name, William Flanagan. I looked at his X account yesterday. It doesn't say whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, but what he shares and posts, he feels like a Republican. I'm wondering whether you've looked at him at all.
David, honestly, I'll look at anybody to defeat Michelle Wu. I think she's that much of a threat to the city, frankly, to the state, and really in many ways to the country. And I think with that discovery by the Daily Caller, that bombshell investigation, which should be one of the biggest stories in the country and the biggest story in Massachusetts, that she took hundreds of thousands of dollars in her 2021 campaign. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. From a fundraiser, he goes by Gary Yu. That's his anglicized name. His real name is Yu. I'm mangling the last name, but Guo Liang. That's his Chinese name. He is a fundraiser. He is an intelligence official with the Chinese Communist Party. He's Chinese. He's a Chinese citizen and a member of the CCP. She's swimming in money from this guy, Gary Yu, and from the intelligence division or the intelligence wing of the CCP. She's compromised. I believe she's an agent of China. At a bare minimum, she needs to be investigated by the DOJ and the FBI. I believe she's a traitor. So when you have someone who is that dangerous, that nefarious, that subversive, as not just the mayor of Boston and doing everything in her power to destroy the city, but as a potential leading presidential candidate for the Democratic Party in 2028, I think the media needs to do its job. And look, I don't care for Kraft. I don't. He's a left-wing progressive on practically every single issue, but I don't think he's a traitor, and I don't think he's insane. As for Flanagan, I've read about him. David, please don't quote me on this. I think he was announcing a run and then backtracked from announcing his run. I know he wants to be a little bit more pro-business. He wants to bring in a little bit more investment. He wants to create a bit more of a business regulatory positive environment for people to come and open up businesses and invest in Boston. But I think from everything I've been reading, it's going to be a primary showdown between Kraft and Wu. And I think a major reason why the media is in the tank for Wu and will not cover this story is because they know if this story breaks wide open, Kraft will beat her in a primary. And they are committed to Michelle Wu all the way. And to be brutally honest with you, David, and I'm speaking now from the heart, I think is because they can't stand the fact that Kraft is the son of Bob Kraft, that Kraft is white, he's a male, and I think his ultimate strike against him, he's Jewish. The Democratic Party, in my view, has now become a brazen anti-Semitic party. Bernie is an anti-Semite. I don't care if he's Jewish. He hates Israel, hates Jewish culture, hates Jewish civilization, openly sides with Hamas, openly sides with Palestinian terrorists. AOC is anti-Semitic. Ayanna Pressley's anti-Semitic. Rashida Tlaib is anti-Semitic. Ilhan Omar is anti-Semitic. This is a party now of Jew haters, especially at the grassroots level. Those are the people, look, those are the people that Harvard is now standing up for in their fight against Trump. They've lost $2 billion or $2 billion in funds have been frozen from Harvard because they won't combat anti-Semitism on their campus. So you look at Harvard, you look at, all these other campuses in the area, it's seething with anti-Semitism and pro-Hamas Jew hatred. So that's why they don't want Kraft as the mayor of Boston. I think it's racism. I think it's bigotry. I think it's anti-Semitism. But look, that's up for Kraft. He's got to defend himself. All I'm saying is, David, at this point, if you want to save Boston, it's got to be anybody but Wu. Because Kraft may be many things, but he's not insane. This woman is insane. When we're talking about pedophiles, convicted child molesters, and you refuse to honor ICE detainers, and you're giving the order to your own police to let these child molesters, these monsters, roam the streets and prey upon innocent children, you're sick in the head. You're either sick in the head or you're a fifth columnist on behalf of communist China. who basically wants as many of us killed and murdered and as much havoc and chaos as possible. So, to be honest with you, David, where I stand is anybody but Wu. And to me, at this point, a vote for Wu is a vote for China. A vote for Wu is a vote for Hamas. A vote for Wu is a vote for the globalists who want to destroy this country. But that's me. Final word to you, David.
There's a vacuum within the statewide Republican Party. The Mass GOP has not, as far as I can tell, and I've looked, they have not put up any candidates for Massachusetts governor or for the mayor of any of our cities or city councils. We have 9 congressional districts. I don't know of any candidates for any of those. In 2020, there were 6 Republican candidates for our House seats. 6 out of 9 House seats had a Republican candidate in 2020. All 6 of them followed my Twitter account. So I have an interest in this. I still today have an interest in Republican politics within Massachusetts and nationwide. And I would love to see Amy Carnevale replaced with a real Republican, someone who fights hard for Republican candidates by recruiting them, putting their names out, supporting them financially, getting them donors, and everything else it takes to win a seat.
David, amen. I mean, really, I couldn't have said it better myself. Drop the mic. And you read my mind. Look, Amy Carnevale, the chair of the Mass GOP, is paid to lose. She's a lobbyist. She's on the take. And her job and the job of the people who support her, I'm choosing my words very carefully, is they are to be the Washington Generals to the Democrats as Harlem Globetrotters. You are there to lose, and you make your money that way. You're not there as you want, as I want. You know, in other words, your job is to keep Massachusetts a one-party state. That's their job. So don't run candidates. Don't support candidates. If you do, support the weakest possible candidates. So your job is basically, it's like a boxer. Your job is to throw the fight. It's like professional wrestling. Yell, scream, pretend like there's opposition, lose, and then get paid in the locker room. So I've been saying this now for a long time. Until that cancer on the Mass GOP, Amy Carnevale, is removed, and these rhinos are removed, the Democrats will continue to dominate and destroy this state. And that's why I've been saying for a long time, we need new blood. We need new leadership. We need fighters. We need somebody who are willing to take it to the Democrats and to the media. And we've got them on issue after issue. Look, the state audit issue is a massive winning issue. The Mass GOP won't touch it. The issue of Michelle Wu and now her obvious ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Come on, we can destroy the Democrats with this. The issue now of energy costs soaring because of this bill, this law that was passed in the legislature signed by Maura Healey, which guarantees now, on average, every family, your energy bill is going to go up $1,200 every single year until 2050. They're going to kill the middle class. To me, you wage war, political war on that issue. You will win. But it doesn't matter. In the end, it's paying them off. And then you have certain media outlets who get their money from Amy Carnevale and the Mass GOP. And they advertise on their shows, or they advertise like in the Boston Herald, and they get their slice of the cash. And their job is to keep Republicans in this state divided and to keep conservatives divided. Because what I've learned, to my horror, frankly, I mean this, to my shock and horror, to my utter disgust, is that they're on the take. Even the so-called I put this in air quotes, conservative media outlets and media voices. Gardner in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Gardner. And as always, welcome.
Hey, and thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the call. I know you're running up towards the end of the show, and it's been absolutely fascinating. And I wanted to mention just one thing, just a quick one, Jeff, is about that guy, Garcia, and his background. I did want to mention, just on a personal level, that guy, Kilmar Albrego Garcia, even though J.D. Vance has mentioned that he was convicted being a gang member, and I missed part of the show, so you might have brought this up, so I apologize if you did. But he actually hasn't been convicted of any criminal offense in the United States or El Salvador. They tried to depict him as a gang member because he had Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie. And so he has a clean criminal record. And I wanted to bring that up because it's such a contentious issue. You know, he has a family, and, you know, if he ever does come back to the United States, this sort of talk about this guy who literally has not been convicted of any crimes, if he does come back, just on a personal level, I felt that was kind of strong. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up was, you know, of course, he should get due process. But the other thing I wanted to bring up was accusations of anti-Semitism. As a guy who went to Boston University and whose last name sounds Jewish but is not Jewish, I should mention that criticism of state, a normative state, especially because I teach philosophy, is not anti-Semitic. There are Hasidic Jews in Jerry Nadler's district who are critical of the United States giving Israel weapons. And if the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act passes, they could be accused of being anti-Semitic. So criticism of the policy of a state on a normative level does not equate to ethno-hatred or religious hatred.
Well, Gardner, let's take the second one first. When you talk about the annihilation of Israel, which is what Hamas, it's in their charter, and is the stated objective of Hamas, and it's what they tried to do on October 7th, where they committed the worst atrocities against Jews since the Holocaust, unspeakable crimes. They murder Jews for the sake of murdering Jews. And when they say and when they chant on college campuses, waving the flag of Hamas, waving signs in support of Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. They are talking about either the utter expulsion or the annihilation of 7 million Jews. If that's not anti-Semitism, I don't know what is. I'm not talking about criticizing Israel's policies towards the Palestinians or the way the war has been conducted or that the Palestinians should get an independent state of their own, which, by the way, Israel has offered multiple times on multiple occasions and has been rejected by the Palestinian leadership without even a counter offer. So they didn't want to negotiate it because the Palestinian leadership wants Israel destroyed. They want the Jews into the river, into the sea. They want to finish what Hitler started. That's the facts. So Ilhan Omar is a Jew hater. Rashida Tlaib is a Jew hater. She has a map literally in her congressional office which says Palestine over the entire state of Israel. So, I don't know how much more anti-Semitic you can get than that. Now, as for this guy, that's what the liberal media is pushing, that the only reason why Garcia was deported was because he had a Bulls cap and a hoodie. But that's not true. It's demonstrably not true. First of all, he's got MS-13 tattoos all over him, but let that go. Not one, but two courts, two distinct immigration courts with two different judges, both concluded that he was a member of MS-13. Not only did they conclude he was a member of MS-13, multiple MS-13 members themselves, gangbangers, said he was a member of MS-13. Plus, furthermore, he was involved in human and sex trafficking. And finally, and to me this is the clinching argument, he's an illegal alien. He's an illegal. He came into our country illegally. He has no right to be here. So the fact that he has a wife or he's got 2 children, I don't care if this guy's a saint. He should be and he needs to be deported. He belongs in his country of origin. That's where he is. So I don't understand why people, frankly, like you, are looking on this guy as some kind of a cause célèbre. He isn't. He's a vile MS-13 gangbanger, a criminal illegal, and we should deport every single one of them. And where I profoundly disagree with you is to tell me that criminal illegal aliens deserve due process. They don't. The Constitution is not for the world. The Constitution is for American citizens and legal residents, not for criminal illegals. I've got 30 seconds. Go.
I'll just mention the power over immigration was left to the states. In fact, the word immigration is not in the U.S. Constitution.
But that's an irrelevant point. But Gardner,
no,
that's
it is
irrelevant.
It is relevant, and you're not allowing me to finish.
Well, we're up against it, but it's irrelevant because Maryland is not, whether Maryland can deport him or not is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that the federal government now, for the last, 140, 150 years, has been deporting people, and it seems to me that no Supreme Court has overruled it. But the fact is, an illegal is an illegal is an illegal. And this guy's an illegal. And we've sent him back to his country of origin. What's the problem? Bye-bye.